Good morning, everybody, from Dhaka, and welcome to the Q1 2019 financial report publication for Grameenphone Limited. My name is Michael Foley. I'm the Chief Executive Officer, and along with Karl-Erik Broughton, our CFO, I will be presenting the results and the highlights of the quarter for you. All the materials relevant to our presentation today have been made available on our investor relations website, and the Q&A link is now live. We'll be addressing your questions towards the end of this session. Well, Grameenphone has experienced a strong financial quarter. The first 3 months of 2019 were good despite growing challenges, mostly in the regulatory area. We experienced a steady growth in the offers and the aggression of our competition, and there's been some seasonality effect towards the end of March. As an industry over this quarter versus last year, as an industry, there are 9.5 million new subscribers in the market, and we've grown 6.3% from last year. Real SIM penetration in the country now stands at about 58% at the end of March 2019. And the real internet penetration stands at roughly about 50%. In the first quarter, GP reported 34.9 billion taka in revenue, which is 11.6% growth year over year from the same quarter last year. We gained 1.1 million new subscribers, ending the quarter at 74.1 million mobile subscribers, and that's a 9.8% growth from the same period last year. We acquired 1.1 million new data subscribers, resulting in 38.2 million total data subscribers in our network. We faced many challenges in the regulatory environment this quarter, both in the form of new regulations and topics and issues still under discussion and awaiting outcomes. We'll talk about those a little later on in the presentation. Our business performance was really kind of focused on three areas: market execution, growth in voice, and new regulations. So we'll talk about that now. On the market execution piece, we now have 100% of our network is a data network, which means that all of our sites all carry at least 3G or 4G or both anywhere across our 15 million sites. This means across the country now, the very large majority of the population have access to the promise of digital Bangladesh. We have spent significant time digitizing our core sales and distribution operations by simplifying our digital processes and making our sales executives and retailers across the country more efficient. We're introducing and have introduced machine learning and artificial intelligence to empower our value chain. We've also introduced 2 apps that cater to our sales executives and retailers and eliminates a lot of the manual input and brings efficiency to their day-to-day operation. Finally, in terms of market execution, we're driving 4G SIM conversion. So we're providing new SIM data offers to consumers, and we extended our efforts to upgrade our customers to 4G, reaching almost 30,000 new customers each day. This quarter, we also hit 10 million 4G users, which means since the launch of 4G on GP, 10 million subscribers have experienced the Grameenphone 4G network at one time. We continue to push growth in voice. There is significant growth potential in this market, and in Q3 last year, the regulator implemented a unified floor tariff on voice, which led to a significant decrease in the number of voice calls and minutes. However, while it gave us a boost in revenue in the short term and reduced the usage in the short term, this has now widely recovered in Q1. Elasticity has occurred over a period of about 4 to 6 months, and this, coupled with the almost 10% growth in subscribers from Q1 2018, we've seen strong growth in our voice revenue of approximately 15.1% year over year. You know, we've also made significant changes to our pricing packages as the market matures and customers become more used to our services. Our 199 taka 350 monthly pack remains one of the most popular products that we have. Now we've introduced, and the 500-minute monthly pack is also contributing significantly to our revenue. This is a change in consumer behavior that we are working on and that we have some good success at now. We've also made some tariff changes in Nishito, D-Juice, and other with some pricing revisions in FlexiPlan. The other thing I think that's important as well is we're seeing good performance in our post-paid portfolio now. And what we have done in particular is implemented in MyGP, the app that customers use to manage their account, the ability to upgrade from prepaid to postpaid simply by hitting a button on their phone. In the area of new regulations, there have been some regulations that have been brought by the regulator here. Our pay-as-you-go cap was now capped at 5 BDT. That used to be at 200 BDT, and we could go to 200 BDT with the consent of the customer. That has been removed, so basically the maximum you can go in a daily basis as pay-as-you-go is 5 BDT. That had a negative effect for some time on our revenue by 1.1 million taka per day. Also, the regulator instituted a minimum 3-day validity on packages, which means we were no longer being able to give hourly or daily packs across the industry. And that was a significant part of our business with 300,000 hits per day on those packages of 1 hour or daily packs. This negatively affected our revenue by about 0.8 million taka per day, but again here, people adapt, consumers adapt, and we think that this is manageable. Both these regulations negatively impacted our data revenue for a time, but we were able to partially recover this with a 44 taka Hero data product, and this actually has grown significantly, 7% more hits on this product since January, and it's contributing very significantly, 23% to our total data revenue. The new monthly pack portfolio, which I mentioned earlier, after the validity changes, monthly 3GB and 5GB packs grew by 19% and 18% respectively in March, and I think that's a very good sign of people getting used to buying large data packs as we move into the 4G world. Upselling offers on our weekly packs through below-the-line sales and self-activation has helped us stabilize and manage our revenue. We did reach, in terms of active users, 6.8 million at this point, and that was at the end of March. That's different than the 10 million. 10 million is anybody who's been on our network since we launched on 4G. 6.8 million active 4G users on our network at the end of March. We now have just short of 6,000 4G sites, and that's part of our ongoing plan to grow the 4G sites to cover a very significant part of our footprint. In the areas where we are serving 4G, 58% of the devices now have SIMs in their 4G SIMs in their devices. So 58% of the devices now have 4G SIMs. Also, more than 27% of our total national traffic now has shifted to 4G, and this is the progress as per our ambitions. We think that will continue to grow significantly as we expand the area of 4G coverage. In fact, in the area where we have 4G coverage, 45% of the total traffic is now being carried on 4G, and that's within a launch, a year of the launch of 4G. That's actually quite remarkable. We ended the quarter with 38.2 million data subscribers, which is about 51.6% of our subscriber base. That's an 18.4% growth over the same quarter last year. We will continue to offer the best network experience for our customers, and we're going to continue to roll out the 4G footprint this year. Let me talk a little bit about the regulatory landscape, and I will look forward to answering some of the questions on this later on. Despite several rounds of consultation on the BTRC audit and the auditors who conducted it, our observations regarding this audit were in fact completely ignored by the regulator, especially and explicitly, it appears, those comments that came after February 2018. This would include, for example, a formal response that we gave them in August last year. On April 2nd, 2019, the BTRC sent a demand note for $125.79 billion to us, payable within 10 days from the date of the issuance of the demand. $84.94 billion of that was claimed by the BTRC. Of that amount, 84.94, 22.99 is principal, and interest is 61.94 billion taka. I remind you that this audit, it purports to goes back almost 21 years. After our assessment, and we have spent a significant amount of time on this case, we consider the demand to be unfounded and without legal basis. And accordingly, on the 16th of April, GP responded to the BTRC, requesting it to withdraw the claim and to enter into discussions to find an amicable resolution. We're now observing and assessing what the next step should be, but we have spent some time preparing for this, and we will continue to operate in a way that defends the interests of our shareholders. On SMP regulations, on the 10th of February, the BTRC declared GP as an SMP and subsequently issued 2 directives stating certain prohibitions towards GP on the 18th of February. On the 25th of February, GP filed a writ petition challenging the above directives. The Honorable High Court issued a show cause notice to respondents, including the BTRC, and allowed GP to continue to advertise, which was one of the prohibitions that have been placed upon us. On the 19th of March, BTRC withdrew and canceled the 2 directives that were given on the 18th of February and asked GP for feedback on the 20 areas cited for future directives. On the 31st of March, we responded to BTRC and denied to make any comment on the 20 areas, as the letter did not contain any proposed directives and no reason for issuing such directives was given. On QoS, the BTRC published a QoS drive report in the media without considering industry observations on the 18th of February 2019. GP, along with the industry, rejected the report. On the 3rd of April, the BTRC published a QoS benchmark for 4 divisions, Barishal, Kunla, Rajshahi, and Rangpur. The call drop ratio for GP in all 4 divisions were well within KPI thresholds. By the way, we are within KPI thresholds nationally. The industry and GP is considering and is still concerned that the testing methodology and tools are not aligned with the industry, and we need to have a commonality of spirit and mind here to understand exactly what's being measured and how we can manage it. The next slide is about our smart solutions. On the 19th of March, we launched Grameenphone IoT at the BASIS Software Expo in collaboration and co-creating solutions with local partners, startups, and government organizations. As a progressive nation, Bangladesh embraces technology and will see the benefits of IoT and AI coming together, bringing greater efficiency and prosperity to our individual lives and enterprises through high-speed connectivity and agility. We introduced a range of IoT products and services catering B2C, B2B, and B2 government requirements. A smart home solution was launched with Datasoft Bangladesh Limited, which allows customers to control home appliances and ensure home safety. CMO Smart Security Solutions with Banglatrack Communications Limited, through which our customers can monitor, listen, and talk back to people through smart indoor cameras or smart doorbells from their smartphone. And a smart attendance solution for schools and offices. Industrial IoT solutions were also announced for factories and smart metering solutions for electricity, gas, and water and gas utilities. Grameenphone also announced a number of IoT enablement services, such as narrowband IoT, a communication network, IoT connectivity data management platforms, and a developer program called Smart IoT. This program, which will be offered in partnership with Telenor Research from Oslo, has been designed to encourage students and entrepreneurs to come up with innovative IoT ideas and help them turn their ideas into reality. With this, I will turn over the podium to my colleague, Carla Bråten, and he will go through the details with you. Thank you very much. I'll be back later. Carla.
Thank you, Michael, and good morning to all of you. So then I will go through the financials for first quarter 2019, and indeed, as Michael highlighted, we have had a very solid financial performance with solid growth on the top line and healthy margins. And as you see here, we have 14.2% year-over-year growth in our subscription and traffic revenues, and we deliver an EBITDA margin of 60.6%. This is according to IAS 17. I will touch upon IFRS 16 at the end of my presentation. Over the last 4 quarters, we have 12.6% capex to sales, and in the quarter, we are delivering an earnings per share of 6.61 BDT. This is a growth of 39.6% year-over-year. We deliver double-digit growth on total revenues as well, as mentioned by Michael, 11.6%. This is of course driven by the 14.2% growth in subscription and traffic revenues, but it's partly offset by a fall in interconnect revenues of 23.7%, as we have seen since the introduction of the unified floor price for on-net and off-net in August last year. In nominal terms, we see that the subscription and traffic revenues have been growing year-over-year with 4.1 billion Paka. This is driven, of course, by the strong voice growth, but also our data performance. In percentage, we see that the voice have been growing 15.1% in revenue terms, 3.2 billion. And as mentioned by Michael also, we have increased our subscriber base with almost 10%, ending on 74.1 million subscribers. If we look at the voice ARPU, we see a growth of 4% year-over-year. Moving on to data, we have an increase in the number of data subscribers of 18.4%, and we have a volume increase of 94.4%. And we have 18.9% year-over-year growth in data revenues. And as you see here, we have now active data users in our base, 38.2 million, which represent 6% of the total revenue base. And also, as highlighted by Michael, 10 million of our data users have touched or tried our 4G network since we launched in February last year, and we have an active 4G base of 6.8 million. Moving on to ARPU, and when we compare the overall ARPU to the last quarter we have a marginal drop in service ARPU. This is mainly due to lower contribution from data, but partly offset, of course, by voice. Year over year, we have a 0.8% increase in service ARPU, mainly driven by higher contribution from both voice and data, but partly offset from lower contribution from interconnect because of, as I mentioned, the unified tariff now on net and off-net. So there is more, you could say, off-net growth. If we exclude interconnect, the year-over-year ARPU increased by 3.2%. Moving on to OPEX and EBITDA. On a reported basis, we have a marginal increase year-over-year on OPEX of 1.3%. You could say Q1 2018, we reported a one-off negative effect of 378 million BDT. This was an appeal fee that we had to pay when we appealed to a higher court in the SIM replacement tax case. If we exclude this, we have an OPEX increase of 4.2% year over year. Still a very healthy level. We are focusing a lot on efficiency and simplification, and we get more efficient day by day. On EBITDA, on a reported basis, we have a 17.6% EBITDA growth year over year, extremely strong. If we normalize this based on the normalized OPEX growth, it's still very, very healthy, 15.2%, with a 2 percentage point improvement in the EBITDA margin. We are reporting an EBITDA margin of 60.6%, and the adjusted or normalized EBITDA margin for Q1 last year was 58.5%. Moving on to investments, and of course our focus is very much on rolling out new 4G sites. So in the quarter we got 926 new 4G sites on air. We of course are continuing relentlessly rolling out 4G, and we ended the quarter with, as Michael said on one of his slides, with more than 5,900 4G sites, and the entire network of 15,939 sites are now with 3G, 2G, 3G, and also the 4G sites. So it's a complete data network that we have covering Bangladesh. And the total capex for the quarter was 4.2 billion. Then going over to sort of the earnings and the bottom line, we have normalized earnings growth of 33.8% for the quarter. As mentioned earlier on the first slide on earnings per share, we have 39.6% growth in the reported net profit after tax, as we have on the earnings per share. And of course, this is a combination of the strong revenue development, the high EBITDA growth. There is also lower depreciations and amortizations, as we have seen, a larger part of our asset base has been fully depreciated, and also that we started the modernization of the network when we introduced 4G, and we had accelerated depreciations on, you could say, the existing network, and according to the 4G rollout plan. We also have lower foreign exchange losses, and this comes from two parts. We see that the depreciation against the US dollar and the Norwegian kroners are less in this quarter compared to the same quarter last year. And of course, the US dollar loan that we have paid 2 installments in 2018 after Q1 2018, and that stands now at $80 million left, with 2 installments left. If we normalize the one-off impacts from both the periods, the NPAT and the EPS increased 33.8%. And the earnings per share, as mentioned, 6.61 BDT. Moving to the operational cash flow and the net debt to EBITDA. We have 2.8 billion higher operational cash flow in Q1 this year. And that's of course a combination of the higher EBITDA and slightly, you could say, going the other way, slightly higher CapEx in Q1 this year compared to Q1 last year. And if you look at our net debt to EBITDA, this is negative 5.4. So it means that we are cash positive, and of course net debt to EBITDA is 0.06. Quarter over quarter, 8.1 billion lower net debt, mainly due to 8.3 billion higher cash balance at the end of first quarter. Then a few words on investments here, and what we have contributed to the national exchequer. Of course, last year when we bought the 4G license, when we bought the 5 megahertz of 1800, and we converted the existing spectrum portfolio, we had a high contribution to the national exchequer. But in Q1 this year, we have contributed with 20.3 billion taka, which represents 58.1% of total revenues. This is in the form of taxes, VAT, duties, fees, and also 4G license and spectrum assignment. As we have reported before, when we bought the 5 megahertz of 1800, we paid 60% at the time we got the license and the spectrum, and then we paid 10% over the next 4 years. But this is a high number. 58.1% of our revenues goes back to the national exchequer of Bangladesh. Then a few words on IFRS 16 and the impact on GP. And the impact is not that much on the bottom line. It's neither that much in our balance sheet, but there are of course movements between lines. So taking the P&L first, it doesn't have any revenue impact, but it has an impact as we are moving all our leases. You could say also the 15,000 sites that we have, we are renting more than 11,000. The rest are shared sites where we are tenant with other operators. And this has now been moved from OpEx to the balance sheet and then appears as depreciations. There are other leases as well, of course, but they are smaller in amounts, outlets and office spaces, house rents. The spectrum was already in the balance sheet, but has been, you could say, reclassified in the balance sheet. Same with the license fees. Then we have also the fiber optic network leases. But the impact in the P&L, which will appear in the statutory financials for Q1 and of course for all quarters going forward, is that on OpEx 817.6 million will be reduced OpEx. There will be an increase in depreciations of 590.2 million BDT and an increase in finance costs of BDT 280 million. In the balance sheet, as of 31st of March 2019, the right of use assets will have a value of 59.9 billion BDT, and lease liabilities will have a value of 19.9 billion BDT. Then I invite Michael back to do the summary.
Oh, thank you, Karl-Erik, for this. Listen, it's a strong business performance that continues in our company in a challenging environment. Some might say an increasingly challenging environment. EBITDA growth continues with strong margins, and we are going to continue to focus on that in the business. And we're building strong data networks, focusing on 4G technology in order for us to be able to be prepared for the future. With that, I'm going to move to the Q&A. They're mostly regulatory or business, so let me try and handle them as expeditiously as possible. On UCB, asked a question according to BTRC about our call drops, and it's longer to actually connect calls when they're dialed. First of all, on the call drops according to BTRC, I think you're referring to an article published where they leaked a report that we had very high call drops in the city, in Dhaka. That was challenged immediately because it was 10 times higher than the competition, and it's simply not the reality of the situation. We have very good call drop numbers, not perfect, and there are gaps in the city. And I think that is something that we are continuing to work on to fill in those gaps. And there are periods of time where things could get a little bit more difficult. But we are well within the guidelines of the ITU and well within the guidelines of the BTRC in terms of our call drops. In terms of call setup time, this is a little bit of the pain going from 2G, 3G, and 4G. 4G is not yet a native call handling tool, so people on 4G have to go down to 3G or even to 2G automatically when they place a call. That increases the call setup time. All operators have that, and most of that would be resolved when later on this year there's a move to VoLTE and other similar kinds of technology. So this is kind of a short-term issue. The second question is about data consumption and elasticity. I think there's a couple of questions about that. And I would say that these are the effects of the beginning of the data journey for us. We do see that that's something we need to watch carefully, but it's not something that any other operator has gone through when they launch 3G and 4G. The other thing is we have common packages between 3G and 4G, so it tends to exacerbate the effect a little bit. But I think this will, over time, come back to a more reasonable kind of profile, and we're not alarmed by it at this point. There's a question about Reliance Jio acquiring Banglalink, and a couple of points here. There are rumors all over the place about what's going to happen if something's going to happen to Banglalink. So I don't think we can comment on that. We don't think that is a useful use of our time to speculate on what could happen. We look at a lot of scenarios and we prepare for a lot of scenarios, but we don't comment on press stories. Again, there's another story about press articles about GP would have to add a premium to their voice tariff, and we're currently at a premium already. Again, here we've heard nothing about this officially. It's been in the press a couple times, doesn't seem to be back now, and it's something that we would have to deal with if it happened, but we're not going to comment on it at this point. I think the other point here to understand is this came in the context of the SMP regulations, and we strongly believe that the SMP regulations need to be framed in a common understanding under the Competition Act in Bangladesh. There is a clear, recent, modern, well-written Competition Act in 2012. That's how we as foreign investors govern ourselves and make sure that we're not abusing a strong position that we might have in certain parts of our market. And the SMP regulations have to be framed within the Competition Act. We have to respect the law in these areas, or else it becomes quite chaotic to operate and unpredictable. Maybe a cue to forward. The data ARPU fell by 5%, but data usage per user increased by 14%. Listen, this is again for us. PayGo capping happened, which was had a higher price per megabyte compared to the subscription packs. This negatively impacted the data price along with the impact from the minimum validity directives. So I think this will resolve itself over time. Again, we're at the very beginning of this journey in terms of bringing ourselves to full monetization of data. That'll take a little bit of time.
I think I would just like to add to that as well, that we see that the competition is much more focused on data than on voice. So we see a lot of campaigning, of course, around data. Again, tariffs down. We've seen continued pressure. I'm not going to comment on forward-looking statements about where we think it could go, but this is again part of the process of converting from 3G to 4G to monthly packs to all kinds of different stories. It's a very early time in this journey here, so I think we'll hold on that for now. When can MOU go back to 240 levels as seen last year? MOU 240. Well, let me look at it in a slightly different way. Overall for the country, and this is kind of an astounding number, we currently serve roughly 420 million minutes per day. That's quite the story. Now, when we first started along this journey of the uniform pricing, we were at about 460 million minutes a day. When the uniform pricing happened, the total minutes delivered in the country dropped to 360 million and has steadily been climbing up. I think you do not change people's behavior that easily. And people are now coming back to their original pattern of calling. It has to do with how we're setting up our pricing as well, with large bucket monthly packs. People are feeling more comfortable in buying up and using more voice services. And I would say that WhatsApp calling has a significant impact on overseas calling, but given the very low price of voice services in Bangladesh, the arbitrage between these OTT products and us is not that expected. During the SMP regulations, is GP scheduled to discuss with the regulator? The answer is yes. We are, in fact, in constant discussion with them on these issues. And, let me just make a statement here that we've been here for 22 years. The regulator is our partner for 22 years. It's sometimes difficult. It's a marriage. And sometimes there are rough spots, and sometimes there are discussions, and sometimes there are disagreements. But we are confident in our position in Bangladesh. We've been here for a long time. We're not going to go anywhere, and we think this is actually something that we'll have to go through. We welcome that fair competition, and we are not abusing our market position. So we are happy that the BTRC took a look at how we approached it, withdrew, and now we need to discuss this with them to make sure that we're working within the framework of the applicable laws of the country and international best practices.
That's the only way that we can encourage foreign investment in the country, is to make sure that the laws upon which foreign investors base themselves for the security of investing in a country, any country, including Bangladesh, that those laws are respected and that the regulator respects those laws, and in that framework we're completely comfortable. Uniform call rate, floor rate. Do we expect pricing regulations? I have no expectation in that area. It may or may not happen. It's not really something we know. What is the current premium that GP has to the competition in data and percentage terms? Do we know that off the top of our head?
No, we don't know it because there are so many offers out there that we know that we are not driving prices down. So we take a premium because we have the best network by far, and we have the best coverage by far. But we, both on voice and on data, we have higher, you could say, average price per minute and average price per megabyte compared to our competitors.
On the last question I see on the list now, what would be the next step regarding BTRC and NBR claims? We have availed ourselves of the alternate dispute resolution with the NBR on our business, our corporate tax in the last little while. That experience was okay. It's helped us to build credibility with the NBR that we're prepared to come to the table in a structured, transparent, well-mediated process to resolve issues. I think we'll continue to find ourselves looking for opportunities to do that. And the BTRC, this is going to be a discussion and hopefully, face-to-face and transparent ways of solving the issues that we have. Did you conduct any survey on the market size of IoT products in Bangladesh and what percentage of total revenue IoT can give GP in the coming years? It's quite important that we have a position in IoT and as a predecessor for 5G services. But if I were to give you a percentage of the total revenue that it would be in the future years, we probably don't look at it that way. We look at it as the opportunity that we need to build. And if we did have a view of that, that would be a forward-looking statement, and that I'm not allowed to give.
But it secures also that the basic services will stay with GP if they buy more advanced services.
I think one other point here that I'm being reminded of is, we won't do everything in IoT. IoT is a very complex ecosystem. So we position ourselves as an enabler of IoT with platforms and with networks, and providing the opportunity for the businesses in Bangladesh to take advance, in IoT, to come to the market, provide services that can enable the economy of Bangladesh, and make sure it continues to be competitive. Do you see data prices stabilizing anytime soon? As we continue to see year-on-year decline, I think I've answered that before. We're at the beginning of this journey, and all companies that have gone from 3G to 4G have seen these kinds of evolutions. How it will go in the future, that would be a future-looking statement. I won't do that, but what we see right now does not alarm us.
I think we also have to add that when we are rolling off 4G, we have said this before, we are doing a modernization of the radio network. So we are going from a single ramp to a multi-ramp to a single ramp. And of course the cost of production of data are going down quite significantly. So it's not only about that the data prices are going down, but the cost of producing that data is also going rapidly down.
The question from UCB, if 5G is introduced in Bangladesh in 2021, would it be possible to migrate to 5G? 5G won't be a big bang. 5G will start to arise in markets over 2021, 22, 23. The government is focused on that. We believe that as well. And the answer to your question is everything that we do today in installing new equipment in our network. Carl spoke about single RAN. We talk about MIMO antennas in our transport network, MIMO antennas in our RAN network. We talk about modernizing our core with Nokia. All these things are designed, in fact, to prepare the organization for the eventuality of 5G and the efficiencies that brings and the opportunity that brings. So 5G will happen in layers on applications in specific kind of environments and for specific industries or applications. It won't be a big bang launch like we do for 4G. We'll run generally on current spectrum, although there may be some new spectrum required to do this as well. So yeah, we are preparing for it. When it comes, we'll be ready for it. I think I'm going to call calling once, calling twice, calling 3 times. I guess we don't have any more questions. If you have any further questions, please reach out to the IR team. And of course, oops, there's a question coming up. If we can reach out to the IR team, and if you need to have a one-on-one conversation, we can arrange for those as well. Made $17 billion in investment in spectrum in the last year. Will this level of investment continue in the future? I can make a statement on that. We believe the pricing for spectrum in Bangladesh is very high. That is demonstrable. It's not just an opinion. If you adjust for the size of the market, the price of spectrum in this market is amongst the highest, if not the highest, in Asia. And it doesn't compare favorably to European costs as well. The last 2 auctions in 13 and in 18 did not reach the objectives of the state and the exchequer. A very small proportion of the available spectrum was actually sold. We will continue to invest in spectrum. There are, in fact, discussions around that right now. But we need to find a way to do this in a sustainable way. When we move to 5G, the amounts of spectrum required are very large, and it is absolutely unsustainable to leave the prices where they are today. So those discussions will continue with our partner, the BTRC, and yes, there will be continued investment in spectrum. What the quantum is not something we'll discuss here.
Just one comment, not on spectrum, but more on investments in general. When I presented that the last 4 quarters we have a capex of sales of 12.6%, and you will see higher numbers from our competitors. But we do all our international procurement through the Telenor Procurement Company in Singapore, and we believe that we have the best prices possible on everything that we put into the network or our IT stack. So we are very comfortable having a lower, you could say, an investment level than some of our competitors.
With this, I want to thank you all for your time today. Again, if you have any further questions, please reach out to our investor relations team, or if you need some private time, let Noreen know, and we'll spend some time with you. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.